Greetings, mighty companions, and welcome back to Transforming Relationships Through A Course in Miracles with Duck Quins
and Holy Spirit.
in the house.
Good to have you guys back with us again on another Tuesday. Course in Miracle readings for all of us Course in Miracle junkies.
That's
we just
right.
cannot get enough of the truth.
That's right. And you too, who are just curious about the course.
Yeah.
Course curious. Yeah, and so welcome back to our class. What we do here on our classes on Tuesday is we let the Spirit decide for us where in A Course in Miracles that we need to learn from. And that's what we teach from each Tuesday. And I went to do the random number generator this evening, and it picked out the chapter that Greg and I are in our own personal reading at the moment, which is beautiful. Coincidentally, just what we had read the other night, saying to each other, we should do this section for class.
Right.
And that's the one out of all the sections the random number generator picked.
And obviously, Spirit agreed.
A Course in Miracles says, what you want that is in accordance with love's will for you, that's done. It happens. All right. So, let me put it right here. It is chapter 14, section 3. And in the edited title is The Decision for Guiltlessness, but I like the original title, which is Guiltlessness and Invulnerability, which I wish I had put in here, but that's okay. So that's what we're going to be reading from. And there we go. And now I'm going to change the privacy setting in the Facebook so that everybody can see it. All right, good. So now we're live on Facebook as well. So that's where we are at. And then when you guys come in, well, I guess I'll wait till somebody's in here to ask for a sound check here. So, but all right. So we're going to begin with guiltlessness and invulnerability. All right. Let's put this up here. All right. So we'll read a little bit and then we'll talk about what it's saying and how to apply it. That's what Greg and I do in this class. We read what the course is saying. We see if we understand what it's saying, and then we ask ourselves, how can we apply that? How can we apply that to our relationship? This is a class, a broadcast where we are attempting to apply these principles to our relationship, to all of our relationships. And our purpose is to help you to do the same with your relationships so that we all can experience the miracles in our relationships that we desire and that we deserve when we apply these loving and forgiving principles to our relationships. That's the purpose of this class.
If you hear any loud gnawing, that's
gnawing.
Our dog Spirit in the background.
Exactly.
Chewing on her dog chew.
Yes. Her other name is Chomp Squatch. She's so big that I call her my little baby Squatch, as if she's a Sasquatch baby. She's so big. But that's right. That's the gnawing sound. It's not, just so you know what that is. What is that weird sound back there? Oh, yes. Speaking of, how about some music that might be a little bit nicer than Spirit gnawing on her bone? Let's see here. Okay, let's see if I can get this started. All right. Oh, that's so much better than our little Chomp Squatch gnawing on her bone. All right, guys. So here we go. Guiltlessness and invulnerability. It says, learning will be commensurate with motivation, which means learning will correspond with your motivation. So you're going to learn whatever you are motivated by. And the interference in your motivation for learning is exactly the same interference as that which interferes with all of your thinking. So there's something that interferes with learning. And what interferes with your learning is the same thing, is that which interferes with all of your thinking. Okay. And then you will learn what you are motivated by. And then it says the happy learner cannot feel guilty about learning. So whenever it says the happy learner, I also immediately think of the fast learner, because I don't want to be a slow learner. I want to learn my lessons quickly. I don't want to have to take months and years to learn my lessons. I want to learn them quickly.
You don't want to take all weekend when you can just try to get it done on Friday night.
Thank you. Exactly. I don't want to waste my whole weekend when I could be being happy just to learn that lesson in forgiveness when I could learn it on Friday. Exactly. Right. So I'd rather be a fast learner than a slow learner. You know what they say about slow learners, right? They don't have as much fun.
Right.
Right. They don't have as much fun and joy as those who learn their lessons more quickly. Right. So I want to be a fast learner. A fast learner is a happy learner, somebody who's happy to be learning instead of angry about still learning. Right. Happy learner is like, yeah, I'm still learning. And what's the lesson? Let's get to it. Let me learn it. That's a happy learner, right? That's a fast learner. So it says the happy learner, the fast learner is the fast learner cannot or does not feel guilty about learning.
Yeah, if you have guilt coming in any form, like we were talking about last week, in any form, then that's a clue that we're not learning, because
That's right.
Learning is all about ridding and undoing ourselves of guilt.
Right.
And that would make sense why we'd be happy. When you're getting rid of guilt, aren't we happier?
Yes.
We're sadder when we take on more guilt.
That's right. That's right. And the Course in Miracles says that living here is learning.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're here to do. This is learning school. Earth is school. It's forgiveness school, according to A Course in Miracles. It's where you come to learn how to release yourself and others from guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so when you know that the purpose here is to learn, then when you make a mistake, then you're like, okay, well, I made a mistake. I'm learning. Learning means making mistakes, right?
And what's the mistake? Is bringing in guilt or giving guilt.
Choosing fear over love.
But
right.
Don't feel guilty about feeling guilty.
Exactly. So learning is what we're doing here. And learning means trial and error. Learning means making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. That's what learning means. That's what we're here to do. But if you feel guilty about still being a learner, then you're going to learn more slowly, which means you're going to continue to make the same mistakes instead of learning from them and not making those mistakes anymore. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to realize that it's okay to still be making mistakes. It's innocent to still be learning. That's what we're here to do. But we're so arrogant that we don't want to acknowledge that we're mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
The Course in Miracles says we'd rather die than acknowledge that we were wrong, that we were mistaken. We'd rather just be, I'm not mistaken. I'm right about the way I'm seeing it, even though I'm in hell right now. Right. So we don't like to admit that we're mistaken or that we're wrong, we don't like to acknowledge, oh, well, I'm still learning. We have this arrogance that's like, I'm trying to demonstrate that I know everything, even though that's ridiculous, you know. So the happy learner cannot feel guilty about learning. So when you're upset, when you're unhappy, it means you are mistaken, and it indicates that you are still learning. That's all right. Don't feel guilty about that, and you'll be able to learn that lesson quicker and move on to the next. All right. Now, the happy learner not feeling guilty about learning is so essential. Not feeling guilty about learning, not feeling guilty about being mistaken and making mistakes is so essential to learning that not feeling guilty about making mistakes and learning should never be forgotten. You want to learn. You want to learn from your errors. You want to learn your lessons quickly instead of taking days, months, or years. Then that comes from not feeling guilty about learning, not feeling guilty about being mistaken, making mistakes. Making mistakes is what learning means. Okay. Now, it says the guiltless learner learns so easily because the guiltless learner's thoughts are free. Wow. So when you're not feeling guilty about making mistakes and learning, then now your thoughts are free to learn better, to make better choices. Okay. All right. Now, he says, but your thoughts being free so that you can learn so easily and quickly, this entails the recognition that guilt is interference, not helpful. Guilt is interference, not happiness, not healing.
Not learning.
Not learning.
Learning is salvation.
That's right. So for your thoughts to be free, which means for you to learn so quickly and easily, entails your recognizing that guilt is not helpful, guilt is not true, guilt is not learning, guilt is not the truth. Guilt is interference. That's what guilt is. It's not helpful. It's not helping you to learn. It's not healing. It's just interference. It actually interferes in learning. Guilt interferes in learning the lessons that we need to learn so that we can be happy. Guilt is interference in learning, which means guilt is interference in being happy. Now, it says, which means guilt serves no useful function at all. Drop the mic. Guilt serves no useful function at all. You know, that's not what we learned. We learned that guilt was the only way to obtain God's favor or God's forgiveness. Right? That's what we learned. We learned that guilt is humility. You know, if you're like, oh, I'm so guilty, that is what gets you God's favor. That's what we learned about guilt. We learned not that it's interference, but that it's helpful. It's required if you want God's favor. Okay. It says, now we are accustomed to using guiltlessness merely to offset the pain of guilt, which means we don't look upon guiltlessness as having value in itself. So in other words, we only defend our guiltlessness to defend against guilt. So like when someone says, you did such and such, I'm innocent. That's the only time we defend our innocence. That's the only time we proclaim our innocence, is when somebody is accusing us of doing something that we didn't do or don't want to be known that we did. The Course in Miracles says we don't see value in guiltlessness in itself. We just only see the value in being innocent to defend ourselves against some accusation.
And that in itself, if I'm defending myself because I've been wrongly accused, now I believe that the accuser is guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that guilt comes into the picture, my learning has come to a halt, come to a stop. And you're absolutely right, hon. When we were growing up, especially in my upbringing and my religious background, guilt was like a reward because I got something now to come talk to God about. Hey, I'm guilty. I did this. Please forgive me. And that's when we think we're holding something of value.
Yes.
The ego makes us feel like we're holding something of value when we found something to be guilty about. And we have something now to come and have a conversation with our creator. We have a reason to come before our creator because we're guilty.
Right.
Where the truth is, the guilt is absolutely what is blocking us from having a relationship, from communicating
with our creator.
Yeah. And so it's the exact opposite of what we've been taught growing up. Guilt has no value.
Right.
So for us to be going through our little bedroom chest at the bottom of our bed, looking through the box for guilt. What can I find in here that I'm guilty about?
Oh,
is the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And in both of our religious upbringings, being guilty was equated with being holy. Like the person who said, I'm not guilty, well, that person was seen as blasphemous.
Right.
So being guilty was considered being holy. Right. And of course, in Miracles is telling us the exact opposite of everything we learned from our religious upbringing. She wants to go out the room. The Course in Miracles is telling us the exact opposite of everything we learned in the past, whatever religion we were brought up in, that guilt is interference. Guilt isn't, but we got to close the door because gets too cold in here. Sorry. I know it gets too cold without the door being shut. Sorry, I would get up, but I can't get out.
You're not guilty.
Okay, I'm innocent.
You're innocent.
I'm innocent for telling you what to do.
Yeah.
Again. Oh, good. Oh, good. Now I can learn better and more quickly. Okay, what not to do. All right. So what Course in Miracles is telling us is that guilt is not holy. It is not helpful. It does not make us more pure and more lovable to God. We're being told that guilt is interference and it's keeping us from learning. It's making our learning go much more slowly. So we learn our lessons much more slowly. And the slower you learn, the longer you suffer. We suffer because we are slow learners. That's where our suffering is coming from, because we're slow learners, and so the Course is telling us that guilt is interference, which means guilt serves no useful function at all. Now, yes, you are accustomed to using guiltlessness only to offset the pain of guilt, which means you don't look upon guiltlessness as having value in itself. We only use our guiltlessness to defend ourselves against some kind of accusation. But that's not the only time that you are guiltless, when somebody accuses you of something. The truth is that you believe that guilt and guiltlessness are both of value, because you believe that both guilt and guiltlessness represent an escape from what the other one does not offer you. So I believe that guiltlessness offers me escape when somebody's accusing me of being guilty, and I believe that that guilt offers me escape from the idea of being guiltless and being blasphemous. The truth is that you don't want either one of them alone. You don't want either guilt or guiltlessness alone, because without both guilt and guiltlessness, you don't see yourself as whole. Isn't that interesting? Without both guilt and guiltlessness, you don't see yourself as whole. You don't see yourself as totally guiltless, and you don't see yourself as totally guilty. You see yourself as needing both.
And we need both, because for me to feel guiltless, often the way that I accomplish that is by making somebody else guilty.
Very good.
And so we believe that guilt and guiltlessness are both of value.
Yes.
In reality, in heaven, there is no guilt.
That's
There's
right.
no guilty. There's nobody walking down the road and people going, there goes guilty Bob.
Right.
You know what he did.
Exactly. Remember what he did?
Yeah. In heaven, there is no value at all for guilt, because guilt's not a thing. It's not real.
Exactly.
And as we're reading here, I know you could relate to this more than me because you've been in the course for so much longer. But in the time that I've been in the course, I have witnessed countless people in the Course of Miracles, including myself, that have said, I want to end this lifetime. I don't want to come back
I
and
want to
do
graduate.
this again. You know how many people we've heard say
All
that,
the time.
including ourselves? And if we really do want to end the life of lack, of sadness, of death, of sickness,
all the effects of guilt,
all the things that this world offers, because they all come absolutely from guilt. Guilt is, the belief in guilt is sin. When we hear that they sinned, you could say, well, they believed in guilt. And because they believed in it, they were either accepting it or giving it.
Yeah, that's right.
And if we really truly want to end our, let's get it over with in this lifetime,
let's graduate.
We're going to have to get rid of this idea of guilt. We're going to have to can it, get it done with and dealt with. And that's really what we're here to learn.
That's right.
That's the whole learning curriculum. And what does the Course in Miracles say? Is at the end of the day, what all the learning has come to is that the child of God is innocent.
That's exactly.
Meaning not guilty.
That's right. That's right. That's the Course in Miracles says that is the core of the universal curriculum that A Course in Miracles is one version of. Course in Miracles is one version of the universal curriculum, and the universal curriculum is God's children are guiltless.
Right.
That's it. Then that's what we're here to learn.
Which flies in the face of all religious teachings
Absolutely.
of this world, because
all the beliefs of the world.
Every religious teaching in this world tells you how you're guilty because you wore that certain outfit that you wore on. You shouldn't have been wearing that, or you said that certain word that is not permitted to say,
or you broke one of God's rules,
or you ate that food that's prohibited to eat. Yep. Or you worshipped on the wrong day of the week.
You're part of the wrong religion.
Or
so
all
so
the
many
things, all the list of all the different religious teachings that this world would teach about how we're guilty. And this world teaches, yes, you're guilty, but look at, we have a plan how you can erase that guilt.
Right.
Where Creator says, hey, you were never guilty from the beginning, and you're not guilty now.
Yeah.
Nor will you ever be guilty.
Right.
How can you be guilty when you came from the one that is perfect? How can you be guilty when you were born from the guiltless of God.
Right. Exactly. And the core false belief of the world is the belief in guilt,
Right.
is the belief in sin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that is literally the false belief, the lie, the illusion that the world's belief system is based on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like you said, that guilt is the sole cause of suffering. Does it say that in the first paragraph or no? It goes on to say that later, but that the Course in Miracles is teaching that guilt is the sole cause of suffering in any form. Maybe it was in my class from last night. I forget where that quote was, but so if guilt is the sole cause of suffering in any form, and the belief in sin and guilt is the core delusion of the world's thinking, then that would have to mean that the one thing that we're really here to learn is that we are guiltless and that there is no sin. You know, if the one problem is the belief in sin, then the one thing that we're to learn here is that there is no sin and that we are not guilty.
And I can actually see now as we're talking more why it starts out with saying if you're feeling guilty, if you're given guilt, that it's slowing your learning way down.
Right.
But my point is I can see how easy it is for us to feel guilty. And the author of the Course in Miracles, creator's not going, you bonehead Greg, there you go again, feeling guilty again.
And giving guilt.
How long are you going to do that? Because the creator knows that we came to a world that whole foundation is on that.
Yes.
So we've been bred to believe in that since our birth.
Brainwashed.
And so if somebody, thank you, that's the perfect illustration, because if we found somebody brainwashed under a bridge, you know,
and a cult,
and we brought them home, and then tomorrow, and we're telling them, you know, you're not alone, you're safe now, you're with us,
you're not guilty.
And then we put them in bed, and then we find them tomorrow morning in a closet, in the corner of the closet,
hurting themselves,
you know, because that's what they were taught to do. We're not going to go, man, what an idiot.
Right.
We're going to realize they've
been brainwashed.
Yeah. Into believing a lie.
Yes, exactly.
And so we're just going to keep working with them until the lie has been corrected.
Yes.
And that's how love is with us. Love's like, you know, it could take a lot of lifetimes for you to get it, but love's not going to abandon us because we don't seem to get it right.
Exactly.
Love will stay with us until we finally come back to our sanity, the remembrance.
Until we learn better.
Right.
Until we learn better.
Exactly.
You know, and love has infinite patience for us, you know, so that no matter how long we take to learn, love remains patient with us. But, you know, even though love is infinitely patient with us, we still don't want to take forever to learn, which means we don't want to continue to suffer forever.
Right.
We want to learn fast so that we can end our suffering, the suffering based on the lie of guilt, and get on to being what we were created to be, which is happy, lasting happiness. Like, why delay the inevitable? You know, if it's inevitable that you're going to be as God created you, why delay that and suffer something that's not even true, which is guilt and sin?
Well, the why is in what it said to us, that we still find value.
That's right.
In guiltlessness and guilt.
Exactly. And I liked what you said about one of the values that I still find in both guilt and guiltlessness is that I find value in guilt, like by making other people feel guilty, I think it makes me feel more innocent.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the values.
Makes me feel better about myself,
exactly.
knowing
that they're guiltier.
That I think you've done something wrong.
Exactly. The idea that they're guiltier than me I think makes me feel more innocent.
Yeah.
And so that's the value I still see in guilt.
Yeah. It's like the person with money is I feel better about how much money I have if I know I have more than you.
Right, exactly.
And that's what innocence seems to do is I
Right.
feel more innocent if you have less innocence.
Exactly. So I would find value in seeing people as lacking.
Right.
Because that makes me feel like I have more by comparison.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So this is, like he says here, it is so essential to your learning. It is so essential to being able to learn and learn quickly that you realize that guilt is interference and guilt serves no useful function at all. Like if you're gonna learn at all and learn quickly, then you've got to learn. It's essential to your learning and learning quickly that you recognize that feeling guilty is not helpful. It's not useful. So when you make a mistake, we learn that if you feel guilty and you hit yourself over the head with a hammer with guilt, that you're being humble and that's how you do better. If you don't feel guilty, you won't learn. Of Course in Miracles says no, that feeling guilty about whatever mistake you made is only going to delay your ability to learn what you need to learn so that you don't make that same mistake. That's what learning means. It means now I don't make that mistake anymore. I've learned my lesson means I don't make that mistake anymore.
Right.
But if you give yourself guilt for making that mistake, then you're going to continue to make that mistake again. Mm-hmm. The mistakes that we're making where we're choosing fear instead of love, those mistakes came from guilt. And so if we're going to give ourselves guilt about making that mistake, then we're going to continue to make the same mistake. Mm-hmm. Right? The mistake we're making came from guilt. And so you're not going to stop making that mistake if you give yourself more guilt. Okay. All right. So essential. Now it says, okay, great. So we read paragraph 1. That was 1. Yay, we read a paragraph. Now it says you are happy and complete only in your guiltlessness. Only in your guiltlessness. We think we are not complete without guilt and guiltlessness, but then it tells us you are complete only in your guiltlessness, and only in your guiltlessness can you be happy. So you're not complete. You are complete only in guiltlessness. You don't need guilt to be complete, and you don't need guilt to be happy, and you don't need guilt to be holy. Okay. It says you can be happy and whole only in your guiltlessness. Now, there's no conflict in your guiltlessness. And so to wish for guilt in any way, in any form, will block appreciation of the value of your guiltlessness, which means it will push your guiltlessness from your sight and you won't feel guiltless. If you're valuing guilt in any way, in any form, then you won't appreciate and value your own guiltlessness, which means you will push it away from your awareness. And you won't experience your guiltlessness. You'll just experience your guilt. Mm-hmm. When you're feeling guilty, you are wrong. When you are feeling guilty, you are not assessing the situation or yourself correctly. So not only will you be attracting to yourself the punishment that you believe the guilty deserve, but you're also going to be wrong in your assessment of yourself and the situation. It's like, I don't want to be like attracting punishment to myself and also be wrong at the same time. I don't want to do that. Okay. Now it says, now there is no compromise that you can make with guilt, and escape from the pain which only guiltlessness allays. So you can't make a compromise with guilt. You know, like, oh well, maybe I'll be a little bit guilty. You can't make a compromise with guilt, meaning you can't be a little guilty and escape from the pain that only guiltlessness allays.
And that also means, as we're reading, for us adults, I see what seems to be so trying in our lives is the political arena, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if you're an independent, a Republican, or a Democrat, what you call yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you follow the news at all, it's so hard to sit there and we're always trying to compromise
Mm-hmm.
because we go, well, okay, I believe in this whole innocent doctrine,
Mm-hmm.
except for,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have our political figures that we make compromises with.
Mm-hmm.
And the Course in Miracles is consistent about us being consistent in guiltlessness,
Mm-hmm.
both receiving it and giving it. And really, the world outside of us is a measure of our grade currently in school that we're learning.
Mm-hmm.
What's your grade, Greg? Well, let's see, you find that person guilty, that person guilty, they're way guilty.
And the president,
they're
and the Congress.
Guilty. They're a lot guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Those people in that country.
All those people that hurt me in the
Yeah.
past.
Those people in those other countries, they're guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're constantly making compromises. And then we sit here on the other hand and go, I want to end this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, until we get rid of all of that, 100%, we will not be ready to graduate.
And we won't escape the pain that perceiving guilt in any form in anyone at any time will bring us. If you know, no matter what form you say yes to guilt, it will bring you pain. Yep. That's the law. That's the rule. Guilt in any form brings pain.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what form of guilt it doesn't matter what way you play the game of guilt, the result is pain. And the only way to not have the pain that comes along with the lie of guilt is to not use guilt, is to only accept the fact of guiltlessness. All right. So, hi, Mary. Lovely to see you. For some reason, we cannot see any comments on our StreamYard except for now we see.
I just saw Mary's.
Yes. Mary says, I just watched Trump and I made him guilty. I need your class. Very good. Maybe that's why there's nobody watching this class.
That's what
We've had no comments whatsoever.
That's what I love about Mary. She's always keeping
it so real. Obvious. Exactly. And so the truth is that you can't make a compromise with guilt, like, oh, everyone and everything, there is no sin, everyone is guilty except Trump or except Biden or whatever.
Or except my boss.
Or except my boss.
Neighbor,
or except me who did something that I feel guilty about yesterday. You can't make a compromise with guilt and then escape the pain that always comes with guilt, whether it's guilt you're given to somebody else or guilt that you are giving to that you feel within yourself.
Right.
And I mean, all you got to do is ask yourself, the person you're seeing is guilty. All you got to do is ask yourself, does God see that person as guilty? Right. You got to ask yourself that. So you're saying that there is no compromise that you can make with guilt and escape the pain that comes with guilt.
Right.
Guilt, pain, they go together.
Suffering.
They go together. It's like cause and effect, right? So, you even if even if the whole world agrees with you that that person is guilty, if you see them as guilty, you are going to experience pain. That's just the way it goes, And if you see yourself as guilty, even though nobody else sees you as guilty, you're going to experience pain. There's no compromise you can make with guilt and escape the pain that comes with guilt. Okay. All right. So let's play it backwards here. Where are you experiencing pain right now? Are you experiencing pain in your body? Are you experiencing pain in your bank account? Are you experiencing pain in your relationship? Are you experiencing pain in your world? Well, where does pain come from? It comes from guilt. It comes from you feeling guilty or you giving guilt. So if you don't like the pain you're experiencing and you don't want to experience that pain anymore, that pain you always complain about, now you know what to do to end that pain. Pain comes from guilt. Guilt is the sole cause of pain and suffering in any form. That is so deep. All right. Hi, Pete. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's so nice to see you guys. Truly, up until now, we haven't seen any comments. Now that you guys are there, can you see us okay? And can you hear us all right?
Sounds like they can.
All right. I think Mary can, because she says, I need this class. And Mary, we so appreciate your honesty. Mary's a Scorpio. So we love your honesty, Mary. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. And let me put again here. Oh, it's right here. And then also I'm going to say, if you wouldn't mind, hit like, share, and subscribe so that the algorithm will share this class with more folks. Okay. All right. And I'll put back the section and title in a minute. Okay. So I'm going to say it again because it's super important. There is no compromise you can make with guilt and escape the pain that comes from guilt in any form with anyone. Learning is living here.
And we went over that, whether it was a class you did or we did last week, but we just recently read in A Course in Miracles where the only reason we're here in this world realm
is for learning.
In the world of bodies and form is to learn.
Yes.
That's the only reason we're here is to learn.
That's right.
And so, learning is living here.
Learning is living. The Course in Miracles says you don't come here unless you need to learn the truth about yourself. That you're not guilty, you're innocent, and you're not a body, you're not separate. You don't come here unless you need to learn. That's what the Course in Miracles says.
Could you imagine if we came, to the enrollment class of Earth School, and as we're signing up to enroll into Earth School, and we're like, now what is it again that we're going to learn there? Because you always hear what you're going to learn. Well, you're going to learn to be a mechanic. You're going to learn to be a chef. You're going to learn to be an artist. Whatever it is that you're signing up to learn. And could you imagine if we were there in enrollment school and they said, well, all you're going there to learn is that guilt is a lie. Guilt is not true. Guilt is just a fabricated illusion.
Yeah, that's right.
And we sit there and go, well, how come it says in here when I read the fine print, note to student, this may take many lifetimes. I mean, I feel like I already understand what you're saying before I even go to the school. But it's going to possibly take many lifetimes just to learn one thing. Can you believe that we're here as long as we've been here? I've been here for, all these years of my life, and I'm still learning same one thing.
Yes.
Is guiltlessness.
Exactly.
what the inheritance is of the child of God.
Exactly. And then uh, piggybacking on that, the first paragraph said that you learn as quickly as you are motivated.
Right.
So you can, it will take as long as you make it.
Mm-hmm.
You could learn this lesson that there is no sin, you're not guilty, and go on to the next grade, you know, the next higher grade, right? But you, or if you resist the lesson, then it takes a long time. In other words, you keep getting held back, you keep getting held back, you keep getting held back on earth in a body. And the only thing that determines how fast you learn that lesson and graduate is your motivation, is your desire to learn more quickly instead of dragging it out.
And it's funny, we like to use words in this world like woke. You know, I'm woke. I'm awakened. And yet the woke people that are self described as being woke are accusing the unwoke of what they're doing from the keeping the woke people from accomplishing their agenda.
Right.
And then the ones that are supposed to be non-woke, of course, they're using the exact same tool, guilt, against those that are claiming to be woke.
That's right.
They're both firing arrows at each other's camp of guilt.
That's
guilt
right.
arrows.
Which means that neither of them are woke.
And
you know,
and neither of them are learning.
Exactly.
Or they are learning, but they're not
learning
they're
the
not
truth.
Graduating from their learning. They're
That's
just
exactly right.
They're just making the same test score errors.
Right.
They're it's a multiple choice, but instead of A, B, and C and D, it's just A and B. Guilty or innocent.
Right. Which
and we keep checking the box. Guilty.
Right.
Guilty.
Exactly.
Guilty.
Which means we're not learning.
We're not learning.
If you're not learning that you are not guilty, that you're innocent, then you're just not learning. All you're doing is you're making the same mistake over and over and over and over and not learning. Right. And then that's where reincarnation comes in. Reincarnation is like, well, you didn't learn, go on back. Oh, you didn't learn, go on back. You didn't learn, go on back. That's a different take on reincarnation, but that is what reincarnation is about. It's like, if you don't learn, then you got to come on back to school and repeat that grade again
and again
and again,
and again.
And which means you got to keep on coming back and doing suffering again until you learn that there is no sin and you're not guilty. If suffering only comes from the lie, the illusion of guilt. And so if you're not going to learn the truth that there is no sin and you're not guilty, then you got to come back and do some more suffering until you learn that there is no sin, you're not guilty. Now, Pete asks, how do I know my innocence? Well, you know your innocence by learning the truth about yourself. And for us, the Course in Miracles was that way to learn the truth about ourselves. Course in Miracles says that the truth about you, that you can learn through many, many different forms. Course in Miracles says there's many different forms of the universal curriculum that you are guiltless. There's many different forms of the universal curriculum that you are guiltless. Now, so anything that teaches you that you are guiltless and that there is no sin is something that will help you to learn that you are truly innocent, which means it is the thing that will help you to stop suffering, and to stop pain.
And another very, very common trend in A Course in Miracles, Pete, is we learn how we are innocent
Mm-hmm.
when we give
Yes.
another. We can't learn
Release
our
from guilt.
innocence on our own.
Right.
We have been given our brothers and sisters for our learning curriculum.
Yes. Yes.
I've been given, both the president and the past president
Oh, the
of the
past
United
presidents.
States. I've been given every single
And the
one of
deep
them.
state.
Every one of them that shows up
Mm-hmm.
is a new opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for me
To
to
learn.
know my innocence.
That's right.
And if I don't want to know my innocence, I just simply don't give it to another
That's right.
brother or sister. And that's how I keep it hidden from myself.
Exactly. And it very good. That's the when Greg says giving the innocence, what it goes on to say in this section and in this chapter is to release other people from guilt.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means to give innocence to other people. It means instead of making them feel guilty,
right,
because they're not fulfilling your script or they're not being what you think they should be or whatever, that you release them from guilt. And that is the best way to learn that you are innocent. So you let yourself be told the truth about yourself, that you're innocent. And just because you're learning and making mistakes doesn't mean you're guilty. It just means you're learning, and when you release other people from guilt, that's also how you learn that you are innocent. So first you hear the truth from one of the forms of the universal curriculum, and then you really get it when you release other people from guilt,
right,
as your spiritual practice. Course in Miracles is a practice, a spiritual path and practice of releasing other people from guilt. Course in Miracles calls it forgiveness.
Now it starts out with, let's say Anna has done something that I perceive as being guilty.
Yeah.
She did something wrong in my
perception.
Perception. And the way it starts out is because I made this error when I was first in A Course in Miracles. I thought it was my job to figure out how she could be innocent, even though I clearly was seeing her as guilty. And so the curriculum starts out with, you need a helper. I need a helper. You need a guide.
A guide.
And the guide, we go to the guide and say, hey, guide, higher loving self, Holy Spirit, this is what Anna did, and I'm having trouble seeing past it. I'm seeing her as guilty. And in time, our guide will help us to be able to perceive them as innocent. Yes. It took me quite a while in some of my stories for my guide to open up my eyes and for me to go, wow, not only are they
not guilty.
In other words, I'm going to let them go on that one. Not only are they not guilty, but once I was shown the truth of their innocence, they always were worthy of appreciation and gratitude.
Absolutely.
It always goes from you're angry or upset with them or triggered with them to the complete opposite, which is now I appreciate them. I appreciate what they did. Literally what they did is
they saved me.
Is either blessed me, it freed me up, it forced me to move into a different area or place in my life where Holy Spirit wanted me to be at and go, because it was in my best interest. Yes. No matter what the story is.
That's right. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. That's beautiful. That, that when you asked for help to see me as guiltless, then your guide to correct perception showed you that not only wasn't I guiltless, but that I had helped you. I had given you something that you needed, something that was helpful.
Right.
It's beautiful. All right. I love it. Mary says, Mary says in answer to Pete, I feel like I'm being awakened from learning through A Course in Miracles. And she says, and you guys, I love to learn this through. I love to learn through this deep wisdom. And then Mary says, you guys always hit my core with such good stuff. I will try making others guiltless, and then I will be freer. Mm-hmm. That's how it works.
And that's why it's a miracle, because
yes,
we're in a world that was designed and built for guilt.
For guilt.
And so when you can, quote unquote, overcome the world, then you're overcoming every idea that the old world stands for, which is guilt.
Yeah.
And so when we're able to see innocence, a miracle happened, because we just overcame everything this world stands for.
That's right. And the Course in Miracles does say that this world was made as a rebellion against God. Mm-hmm. It's like the end is like, I'm going to make my own world, God. So this world was made as the anti-God world, where we could make our own reality and be God ourselves. And but just because this world was made to be the anti-God, which means the anti-guiltlessness, just because this world was made to be the realm of sin and guilt and pain and punishment, doesn't mean that the world has to remain like that for us. The Course in Miracles teaches us how to give the world a new purpose, which is to learn that the children of God are guiltless and that there is no sin. Mm-hmm. Right? And the Course in Miracles teaches us the technique or the device of forgiveness as the way to learn that we are not guilty, they are not guilty, and that there is no sin. And so that's what we're here to learn.
You can see all of the sleeping children of God before we went to sleep. We were in some big conference room, and there was some, head chief person named Lucifer or something at the head of the conference table, and said, okay, the reason I called this meeting today is because all of you have expressed interest in being separate
from God
and being independent,
or being God,
making your own decisions, being your own self,
being God.
And so I came up with this creative way of doing it, and it's called guilt. And we all looked at each other and went, guilt? Have you ever heard
What's
that word? And we're like, what is
that?
Oh, well,
that
guilt
so
is
cutting
when
edge.
somebody has done something wrong, and we're like, did something wrong? How is that possible?
Right.
Well, and all you have to do is to believe in it. That's all it's going to be required, and see value in it. And the value is we'll be able to be separate. We'll be independent.
And you could be God yourself and make up a reality of your own. You could be God.
And all we have to do is believe in this thing called guilt.
And then Lucifer said, all right, who's in? Who's with me?
And I was like,
and apparently we went, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Well, how much does it cost? Well, the only cost is that you have to suffer. You have to suffer for it.
But don't forget, no pain, no gain.
Oh, right, exactly. And then Lucifer goes, remember, no pain, no gain. And then we all went, oh, that sounds great. Where do I sign me up? That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm going to open a gym that says that.
And that's how we got here.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That is how we got a world where pain and suffering seems natural.
And beneficial.
Yeah, like somehow you'll gain from suffering, And the Course in Miracles says pain and suffering is not natural at all. It wasn't God's idea, and it's not natural at all.
Right.
And it's completely unnecessary. And that's the truth of it. And now that's what we need to learn, since we denied the truth, which is that there is no separation, there is no sin, there is no guilt, and so there is no need for suffering. Since we denied that because we wanted to be God and make up our own reality, Now reality, which is there is no sin and no guilt and no suffering, is something we now need to learn. Now we're learners. We were creators, but since we denied the truth, now we're learners. You know, I want to get back to being a creator that I was created to be.
Right.
I don't want to be like having to learn.
And the same thing.
Yeah.
And the same thing over and
over. More like pain, no gain.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Very good. I like that. That's exactly it. It's like, hey, you want some pain and no gain? Come on over here.
We'll sign you up on a trial membership.
Come on. You want to have some pain and no gain?
It automatically renews. You don't even have to do anything.
Everything from the ego automatically renews.
Right.
It tricks you into signing up for something that automatically renews without you realizing it. Yeah. But that's right. The ego's like, yeah, you want to have some pain with no gain? And we were like, yeah, that's good. Next thing you know, we were born in a body. And the Course in Miracles says that you were born into the world in pain, and that your growth is attended by pain, and then you grow, and then you wither, and then you seem to die and are placed in the ground where worms wait to eat you, and that is called natural. That's the story of Earth. You're born in pain, through pain. You're born in pain. Your mama is in pain, that's for sure, when she's giving birth to you. So, you're born through pain. Your mama's screaming. She needs an epidural, right? Because of so much pain. And then your growth is attended by pain and suffering. And you grow and you wither, and then you die and you put in the ground where worms wait to greet you. That is the cost of the belief in sin and guilt. Is it worth it? Right. And so, like you said, Lucifer goes, hey, you want some pain and no gain? Come on, just believe in sin again. All right. I love it. Mary says she loves your analogy too, Pete. All right. Now, then it says, learning is living here. Learning here. Living here. Learning is living here. Just like creating is being in reality. And so whenever the pain of guilt seems to attract you, like when Mary says she was watching the speech tonight and she had and guilt attracted her. Okay. It happens to me every day. Sometime during the day, guilt attracts me where I'm like, ooh, that person is guilty, or, ooh, I'm so guilty.
YouTube is my guilt friend.
Exactly. Doom scrolling.
Guilt scrolling.
Guilt scrolling.
Or you could call it pain scrolling.
Yeah. Oh.
I need some pain today. Let me keep scrolling until I find some pain. Oh, there's some. What did they do? Who did they do it to? When did they do it?
I would never do that. I can't believe they did that. I would never do that. That.
And I didn't even need to leave my house. I didn't need to go nowhere. I found pain just from where I'm sitting, just from finding some guilt.
Exactly.
And why? Because literally we're attracted to it.
We are attracted.
We seem to find value in it.
Exactly. We're attracted to guilt because we still see value in it. Like you were saying earlier, one of the values I see in guilt is when I see someone else as guilty, it makes me think that I'm more innocent by comparison.
Right.
Right. And so whenever I see value in guilt, I'm being attracted to guilt, which means I am attracting pain. I'm inviting. The Course in Miracles says that guilt is the unconscious request for punishment. That's what, which is pain. Punishment is pain. Pain is punishment. Now it's going to give us the instruction for what to do to undo our attraction to guilt, which means our call to pain and punishment. So, whenever you are attracted to guilt, pain, and punishment, here's what you can do. Remember, say to yourself that will save you from the guilt and the pain and the punishment that always comes with the guilt. Okay, you ready for that? Does that sound practical? Does that
Sure
sound
does.
helpful?
Sure does.
Okay.
Let's read it.
All right. So whenever the pain and punishment of guilt is attracting you, remember, if you yield to that guilt, whether you give that guilt or you accept that guilt, you are deciding against your happiness. And you will not learn how to be happy. Okay, so that's the first thing to do. Hear the instruction, listen for the instruction. Whenever you are tempted, whenever you are attracted to the pain and punishment of guilt, remember that if you yield to this guilt, the receiving or the giving of it, you are deciding against your happiness, which means you will not learn how to be happy, period. Okay, see the instruction.
Mm-hmm.
The next instruction is, say therefore to yourself gently, but with the conviction born of the love of God and the love of you, say to yourself, what I experience, I will make manifest. And if I am guiltless, I have nothing to fear, no pain, no punishment. And so I decide and I choose to testify to my acceptance of my guiltlessness and not to its rejection. I want to accept my guiltlessness. How? By making it manifest, which means sharing guiltlessness. So let me bring guiltlessness, which means peace, to God's children, which means everyone, from their Creator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It says, each day, each hour and minute, and even each second, you are deciding between crucifying yourself or resurrecting yourself. Every day and every hour and each minute, you are deciding between your ego and your higher self. And when you decide for your ego, you are choosing for guilt and the pain and punishment that comes with it. And when you decide for your higher self, your loving right mind, you are deciding for blamelessness, for guiltlessness, and the peace that comes with that. The power of decision of which one you choose, innocence or guilt, is all that is yours. The power of decision for either guilt or guiltlessness, that's all that you have. The power of decision is all that is yours. And so what you can choose between is fixed. Okay, so I just want to go back and I want to emphasize that instruction that we were given about what to do when we recognize that we are tempted to, when we are attracted to guilt and to pain and punishment.
And just finishing that sentence, so what you choose between is fixed because there are no alternatives except truth and a lie.
Guilt and guiltlessness.
Right. And that's why we're saying earlier it's like we're taking a test, but in this multiple
choice test,
there's only A and B.
Right.
There's not A, B, and C.
That's correct.
And D, which is all of the above.
Yes.
there's only two choices. It's really simple.
Yes.
It's so simple, but we've made it so complicated because it seems complicated, because doesn't guilt come in so many different, seemingly different forms?
Yes.
But it's all guilt. You know, it seems to be coming from, my bank account isn't where I want it to be at. That's guilt.
Somebody hurt my feelings.
My neighbors, looked at me cross-eyed. That's guilt.
Yes.
And we just have thousands and thousands, it seems like, of different ways where we're attracting guilt
and pain.
But we can become awakened,
aware
of this concept, and radically change our lives. Just in the last few days, I didn't share this with Anna, but just in the last few days, I have looked at our life, and this isn't bragging. This is just observation of how the truth works. It really does work.
And what it has done in your life.
And what it's done in our life is it's brought me so much joy and happiness. And the Course says our function, when I first heard this in the Course, I about fell out of my chair. That God created us, and so God gave us our function. And our function is to be happy.
What?
And we created, not ourselves, but we created a way for us not to fulfill our function to be happy,
right,
with a tool called guilt.
That's right.
And that one tool blocks us from experiencing the joy, the happiness, and the freedom that God intended us, each one of us,
absolutely,
to have as our inheritance. And we're like, well, I don't want that inheritance. I want something else.
I want some pain and punishment and suffering.
Yeah.
And lack and death.
And, And of course, we don't connect the dots like that, because who would ask for pain and suffering? But
that's what we say.
Yet, if we start connecting the dots, we'll see that that's where it comes from.
That's exactly
this story, right. A bunch of you have heard it before, but I was coming into our bedroom one night and I stubbed my toe into the bottom of the headboard of the bed, and in the dark. And you know how painful it is when you stub your toe into anything that's not going to move.
Yes.
And man, that pain went straight up through my body immediately. And Anna's like in the bathroom, and she heard me scream, and she's like, "What happened? What's wrong?" And I said, because I was walking down the hallway into the bedroom thinking about this particular individual and what an idiot I thought they were. And because we had just finished a class similar to this, I was able to connect the dots immediately
between your pain
to guilt to pain, the pain.
And
she
you were
said,
feeling.
"What's the matter?" And I said, "I just gave myself some pain by guilting somebody, by seeing somebody as guilty." But at least I was able to see it.
It was a miracle. It was a true miracle, truly.
And when, we may not want to release that presidential person or that person in another country or our neighbor or our coworker.
Or ourselves.
We might want to hold on to that guilt because it seems so justified.
Oh, it seems so justified.
Right,
and look at all these people who agree with me about my guilt, my condemnation of that person.
But the beauty of A Course in Miracles is, just like I can connect the guilt to the pain, I can connect the happiness to the innocence. It's the same play. It's just now we're reversing the tide in our life.
Exactly. And Pete says, isn't it funny how it happens literally immediately?
Yeah, it does.
It does. It happens immediately until you make the connection,
right,
and then decide differently, which means learn.
Right.
Make the connection and decide differently, aka learn. You know, exact. Greg when Greg, stubbed his toe and immediately made the connection between the pain and the guilt he was giving, that's when Greg learned.
Exactly.
That's what learning means.
Right.
And now Greg shortened his learning time, which means his suffering time. And now Greg has a life where his suffering has been profoundly diminished.
And we have people in our life that tell us, they seem to act like we're lucky, like that's just, I can't believe
you're just
that,
so lucky
that happened to you.
You're
guys.
so lucky.
You just got so lucky.
We're like, no, it's no luck at all.
It has nothing to do with
It's called
luck.
learning.
Yeah, it's called learning. And
It's like,
as we learn, our life gets happier, freer, more enjoyable. And
exactly.
It's because what that one line
it said
say
learning
about
is living here.
the power of decision.
Yes,
is
all you have.
Yours.
Is all that's yours. That's right.
The author of A Course in Miracles once said that all power in heaven and earth has been given to me. And those of us that have heard that went, I used to think, well, that must be nice to be you, that God gave you all power in heaven and earth, but not realizing that the author was making a statement that all of us can make. All power in heaven and earth has been given to me too.
Yeah.
Because I have the same power to make the decision for guilt or innocence. I'm the decision maker.
That's right.
That gets to decide, okay, even though they did something that I am tempted and attracted to see as guilty, I can take a deep breath,
learn, make a different choice.
I'll turn it back to you because you were going to go back through what we were just reading.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize the instruction.
Right.
And so, it just said what to do when you are tempted, when you are attracted to guilt, pain, and suffering.
Right.
Okay. Which means when you're tempted by guilt. When you're tempted by guilt, you're being attracted to pain and punishment and suffering.
Which we can be fair to say at the beginning of our learning is, like it said, every hour, every minute, every day. It's constant.
Yes.
We're constantly attracted to guilt.
Yeah.
Until you start connecting the dots.
Which means learning.
Right. And once you start learning, I still do it way too often, but I do it far less than I did, say, 6 years ago.
Right.
And now, because now as that temptation comes up, I've already learned so many times that I don't want to give guilt because I already know it's an attack on myself.
Right. It's a call for pain and punishment.
Now I forget that often because when the guilt comes up so many times, it's when you're driving in your car and they cut you off, you don't pause long enough to think, I don't want to attack myself.
Right.
And so we go, you idiot.
What's wrong with you?
Learn to drive on a tricycle? You need training wheels. And so we do it, and then 2 miles down the road we got a flat tire and go, dang it, why does this kind of stuff happen to me?
And then we go, oh, why is this happening to me again?
Yeah.
And then we see ourselves as a victim.
Right.
Of the world, not realizing that you're not a victim at all. You just are receiving what you just gave.
Right.
Which means you didn't learn.
Right.
And so I wanted to encourage you guys to write this down. This is a instruction. This is an instruction for what to do when you are tempted, when you are attracted to guilt, when you are tempted to ask for pain and suffering by giving guilt. Okay. And so I'm going to encourage you to write this down so that, because this is important. You want to memorize this because you're going to be you're going to be attracted to pain and suffering. You're going to be tempted to give guilt a lot until you learn. Right. And so want you to write this down so that you and memorize it so that when you are attracting pain and suffering by being tempted to give guilt, that you can say this. And so, like, Mary was saying later that she recognized she gave guilt. Okay. So let's say you recognize, oh, I was giving guilt. I sat there and I judged that person and I gave them guilt. And I thought, what an idiot. Oh my God, what an idiot. I would never do that. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let's say you gave guilt, whether you gave it to yourself or you gave it to somebody else. But then you realize, oh crap, I just asked for pain. I was just attracted and asked for pain and punishment. Okay. Now what do I do to cancel that order?
Mm-hmm.
I made an order into the kitchen. I said, I would like some pain and punishment. Here's the guilt I gave. And you realize you just put in an order for pain and punishment, but you would like to cancel that order. What do? You say that. Mm-hmm. You say, what I experience, I will make manifest. Mm-hmm. So if I'm experiencing guilt, I'm going to make it manifest in pain and suffering. But if I am guiltless, I have nothing to fear.
I'm going to make that manifest.
I'm going to make that manifest.
Which is
peace and joy.
The receipt, the dinner plate of guiltless.
Abundance and joy.
Good.
It's going to be abundance, peace, and joy.
The other one's going to give me food poison.
Exactly. So I choose now. I'm changing my mind. I choose now to testify to my acceptance of guiltlessness. I accept that they are guiltless and I am guiltless. And I choose now, I choose again to testify to my acceptance of guiltlessness, their guiltlessness and mine. And I choose not to reject guiltlessness. And so I choose now, I accept my guiltlessness by making my guiltlessness manifest. I choose to share my guiltlessness. Will you turn the page there? Yeah. I choose to share guiltlessness, right? And I changed my mind and I've decided that I'm going to share guiltlessness. I'm guiltless. They're guiltless. We're all guiltless. Okay. None of us know what we're doing. We're all equally loved by God, and they're innocent and I'm innocent. I choose to accept my guiltlessness and I choose to share guiltlessness. Okay. I'm changing the order. I'm canceling my old order for guilt and pain and punishment, and I'm choosing again for guiltlessness. They're guiltless. I'm guiltless. Everybody's guiltless. I'm going to share guiltlessness. In other words, I'm deciding once again to bring peace to God's children from God. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if you want to cancel all your orders for pain and punishment that you gave that you ordered when you gave guilt, then this is how you do it. So I just wanted to emphasize that. You have an amazing tool right here, practical application tool to cancel that order for pain and punishment and suffering that you made when you chose to give guilt. And so this is how you do it. So this is one of the first things that I memorized in A Course in Miracles, because talk about something that's practical, helpful, and useful. Guilt is not helpful or useful, but the choice for guiltlessness, the choice to give guiltlessness, that is useful and helpful in experiencing only peace and joy and abundance. So I just wanted to emphasize that. I wanted to encourage you to write that down and to memorize that and to use it when you are attracted to guilt, when you are putting in that order to the kitchen for some pain and punishment and suffering that always comes when you give guilt. All right. Now I want to tell Light Upon Light, thank you for your super chat. We deeply appreciate that. And Light Upon Light, I want to tell you, thank you for all the super chats that you have given us. You have been so very generous, Light Upon Light, and I so appreciate it. Light Upon Light has given us many super chats, and so it's so deeply, deeply appreciated, Light Upon Light. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So, okay. She said, Pete says, can you review again how to cancel the order? Okay. The way you cancel that order, Pete, is to say that saying that was in paragraph 2. Okay. In paragraph 2, here's how you do it. It says, say to yourself gently, no attack, no anger, say to yourself this gently, but with the conviction born of God's love for you. Say to yourself this. You say this. What I experience, I will make manifest. So if I'm experiencing guilt, giving guilt, I'm going to manifest it in the form of pain and suffering. What I experience, I will make manifest. If I am guiltless, and if I am not giving guilt, I have nothing to fear. I choose to testify to my acceptance of guiltlessness and not to its rejection. I want to accept my guiltlessness by sharing guiltlessness with other people. And let me bring peace to other people from God. Okay, the source of other people. Okay, that is the way to cancel your order for pain and punishment that you make every time you give guilt in whatever way you give it. Okay, great. And so I encourage you to write it down and memorize it. Put it on your mirror in your bathroom. Put it on your mirror in your car. Put it on your dashboard, because you're going to need it. Where is it that you are most tempted to give guilt? Where is it that you are most attracted to pain and suffering? Where is it? Make sure you put this thing, this thought correction, this guilt correction. Make sure you put it there, wherever it is. Like Greg was mentioning, road rage. If you experience a lot of temptation to give guilt, you experience a lot of attraction to pain and suffering when you're driving and you got road rage, put it in your car. Where if you experience a lot of attraction to pain and suffering when you watch your TV or videos, put it on your computer, put it on your TV.
I think you could put just a short few words, something like guilt equals suffering.
Thank you.
Or guilt
very good
equals pain.
And you said very good.
And then every time
very good.
I'm tempted to give guilt or receive guilt, I know that that's equals pain and suffering.
Exactly.
And once we really get that, we really get that recipe, then you don't want to cook with that anymore.
Exactly. And that's what we call learning.
Right.
That's what learning means. Oh, I see the connection between giving guilt or experiencing guilt and pain and suffering. Oh, I finally got it. That's what learning means. And that's what we're here to do. And the quicker you learn the connection between guilt and pain and suffering, then the quicker you learn how to be happy.
And of course, A Course in Miracles teaches us that there are stages to our learning development.
Yeah.
At the beginning, we were learning that guilt is the source. It's the ingredient that gives us sickness, that brings all pain, that brings all sorrow and suffering. Guilt is the ingredient that accomplishes that.
Yes, right.
And at the beginning, we're learning that, and the Course encourages us to say, before we leave this learning school called Earth School.
Mm-hmm.
Before we leave, it's not that we just stop giving guilt and then we disappear.
Mm-hmm.
We stop giving guilt, and then the Course says, then what we start experiencing is what the Course calls the happy dream.
Happiness, a happy life,
Right.
abundance,
And that's where you
joy.
go from all the pain and suffering
Yes.
to abundance.
Oh my God, I love my life.
Can you believe that
Oh,
that phone call just came in, and can you believe that just opened the doors to this? Oh, I've always wanted to do that.
yes.
And it's by
Dream
no
come
surprise
true.
that happened, because
Mhm.
what my experience is what I manifest.
Yes.
And if I'm experiencing guiltlessness,
Mhm.
then I manifest happiness.
That's right.
And
Happiness.
so I'm co-creating it with Creator, my
Yes.
happiness.
Yes.
And then the more I release guilt, the more happy I get, the more joyful I become,
The more free you
the more
become.
abundant, the more free, the
Mhm.
more I start enjoying
Your life.
this school that I'm in. I can
Yes.
be in school and have a good time.
Exactly. Exactly. So it goes from the school of hard knocks,
Right.
to the most joyous, amazing, beautiful school that you could have ever dreamed of.
Right.
Where you're like, I love this school. This school's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
No. So, all right, guys. Well, there you go. We encourage you to continue to finish this section. There's about 4 more paragraphs here, and as you can see, this section is giving you the formula for experiencing a life that is truly happy, full of peace and love and joy and abundance, happiness, health, and wealth, for sure. This is the key to true happiness.
Mm-hmm.
This is a formula for experiencing a life that, like Greg was saying, where you're like, I can't believe our life. It just gets more and more happy and beautiful and abundant every day. Wow, I would have never dreamed that I could have a life like this. This is the formula. This is the formula that gives you what the Course in Miracles calls the real world, or the happy dream, a life you love, that you can't barely believe you've got the life of your dreams. We're happiness.
There's a scripture that says that in the latter days, because people had not a love of the truth, they were given over to a lie. Or in some versions, it says they were given over to a strong illusion.
Mm-hmm.
An illusion is like a mirage in the desert that's
right.
not really there.
Right.
And because we had not the love for the truth, and what's the truth?
Guiltlessness.
Is guiltlessness.
Sinlessness.
And because we did not have a love for the truth, we were given over to a mirage, an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And the illusion is the mirage of my brother and sister looking and appearing to be guilty.
Yes.
As if I'm seeing something that's real, but it's not real.
Yes, exactly.
So.
Yes, guilt is a mirage. It's
Right.
an illusion that only brings pain, suffering, and lack,
Right.
with it.
Disappointment.
In disappointment, absolutely. Whereas guiltlessness, yours or theirs, is the truth, and it always brings peace, joy, and abundance with it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your great questions. Thanks for your super chats. We so appreciate your appreciation, your comments, your questions, all of that. We just appreciate you being here. And thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and helping the algorithm to push these ideas out to the world. So you just being here, liking, sharing, and subscribing, you truly are gifting the world. You truly are gifting the world with these ideas. So on behalf of the world that so desperately needs these ideas, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you guys. And we'll see you next time we see you.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.